3, 2, 1, action. All right. Welcome back to No Filter MMA, guys. This is your boy BJ back with another video short. I am joined on this one by my boy Sergio from Bloody Canvas MMA and my boy, the newest addition to Bloody Canvas MMA family, my boy Jacob. So, guys, we are here to talk about the main event for UFC 257, guys. 2021 is starting off with a bang. So, we have Conor McGregor making his highly anticipated return to face the streaking and in his prime Dustin Poirier. This is a rematch. The first fight took place at 145, first round stoppage by Conor. And now you have a much more invigorated Dustin Poirier coming into this fight, and you have a very humble Conor McGregor coming into this fight. What were your initial thoughts? I'm gonna start with you this time, Sergio. What was your initial thoughts when this matchup was made?
Well, I hate matches. I'll just put that out there. I can't stand them. I know it's a different fight. I know it's different weight class and everything, but I'm not a fan of rematches unless it ended up being a draw or whatever, or it's for the title, in which case this is not. That being said, it's a great matchup. I mean, Dustin Poirier had that, a very impressive win over Dan Hooker, and Conor McGregor had the impressive win over Cowboy Cerrone. So it does make sense, and I think both of them are, respectively 1, 2, or 3, depending on where you put Gaethje in there in the division. So it does make a ton of sense. And I think the winner of this fight could make the case for, that they're the second best after Khabib. So for me, I think right now, as much as I hate rematches, I think the fight makes a ton of sense. And that's what I initially thought. As for styles, I mean, we know that both these guys like to keep things on the feet. Do I think that's the way to go for one of them? Absolutely not. But I think this is going to play primarily out on the feet, which as a fight fan, I always like.
Yeah, I mean, when this matchup came about with the sparring match, I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then, it's turned into a title eliminator of sorts, depending on what happens in this bout. So I'm very, very intrigued to see what happens in this fight. And both of these guys have clearly improved since their meeting 7 years ago. And I can't wait. I haven't been this excited for a fight in a long while. I mean, other than the Holloway versus Cater fight last week, this is the most excited I've been for a fight. I think maybe even ever, because I love Dustin Poirier, and I think Conor McGregor. We'll get into the breakdown later, but I'll save that for the breakdown. I think Conor McGregor is the most underrated fighter ever, and I'll explain what I mean by that later.
My bad. I meant to say, guys, you might as well go ahead and segue on into it, Jacob. If you're gonna talk about it, man, you might as well go ahead and talk about it. Let's get it going.
All right, I shall talk about that then. So I think Conor McGregor's takedown and ground defense are extremely underrated. I think, people don't see McGregor as a ground fighter. I'm like, he works on his defense so much that he doesn't have to be. And I think when people talk about, his striking, oh, he's Conor McGregor, I'm like, I saw the stat today, Chael Sonnen said something about it. In the rounds he finishes opponents, he lands 61% of his strikes. And I think that's just an absurd clip. Overeem lands 75% of his strikes, but that's Overeem. That's a whole nother beast. But Conor McGregor, with the volume he throws and the precision he throws it with, I think people overlook him as a fighter just because of who he is. Because he's this cocky Irish guy. He backs it up, so he's not really cocky, but that's why I think he's underrated. I think people just overlook his ground skills, and I think when it comes to his striking, there's not much he can't do in that department. I mean, he hit Cerrone with a head kick, and Cerrone has the most head kick knockouts. So that just shows his diversity.
Yeah, to add to that, I do agree with that statement. I mean, in my eyes, he is the most underappreciated and he's the most underappreciated fighter I think we have. Very, very underrated because, the thing that stands out about Conor is his trash talk. You know, when you think Conor, that's what you think of, right? But from a casual perspective, I think he's probably the most overrated, because if you ask a casual who the best fighter of all time is, they say Conor McGregor. So I think it really kind of depends on who you talk to. Us, the three of us, think he's very underappreciated and very underrated. You look at what he's done, the list of people he's beaten. I mean, he stood toe to toe with the best boxer of all time and held his own. He did a lot better against him than a lot of the people who have had years and years of boxing experience. And that's in boxing. You look at his MMA career, I mean, Khabib and Nate are the only two fighters that beat him. Nate beat him on what, 5 minutes notice? Like, he had a change of opponents. He was preparing for someone completely different, in a different weight class, got Nate Diaz, and Nate Diaz, he was beating Nate Diaz until he gassed. And then you look at Khabib. Khabib is stylistically the hardest possible matchup for Conor McGregor. And he did better on the ground than anybody Khabib's ever faced. You know? So for me, Conor has to be the most underappreciated fighter for us hardcore fans.
I'd like to add one more thing. And when we talk about Conor in that Khabib fight, Conor wasn't focused. I mean, I'm obviously, that's what a lot of people think is BS, but I think it's obvious that he wasn't focused. I mean, if you look at the presser, he was plastered. So I just wanted to bring that up. But motivated Conor McGregor, I think he's the best fighter the UFC's ever seen. And I'm not even going to exaggerate. Maybe besides John Jones. Johnny Bones is my guy.
Okay, well, we now know that Jacob is gonna ride for his boy Conor McGregor. We know that. We found out more and more about you, Jacob. Jacob is an avid Conor McGregor fan. Listen, Conor McGregor shocked the shit out of me when he went out there and finished Cowboy Cerrone. Listen, I was expecting a 5-round or at least a 3. I mean, you know, I was expecting a longer, very beautiful striking match. Like, that's what I was expecting. I was expecting Cowboy and Conor to put on a beautiful stand-up battle, and Conor just, I mean, took him out. You know what I'm saying? Like, took him straight out. You know, the problem I see with Dustin Poirier is that Dustin Poirier is going to want to fight. Like, he is going to want to stand on the feet and trade with Conor McGregor, and he knows that is, you know, that is very dangerous. But the thing about Dustin Poirier is the Dustin Poirier that was fighting then couldn't take shots like the Dustin Poirier that's fighting now. You know what I'm saying? Like, Dustin Poirier is a much bigger, much more mature fighter who should honestly be fighting at 170 pounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, he's talked about moving to welterweight, and I think Dustin Poirier, I think he could fit, his body would acclimate well to 170 pounds. I would just hope that his cardio acclimated as well. You know what I'm saying? But in this fight with Conor, man, like, you know, Dustin can't sit there and eat too many of Conor's shots, but Conor can't sit there and eat too many of Dustin's shots either, man, because Dustin Poirier gonna throw heat at you. Like, he's a very powerful striker, man. You know what I'm saying? And Dustin Poirier can swing, man, and he's fast with it too. So, you know, it's like, really, if this fight's gonna be on the feet, the way I'm feeling is like, who can get that shot off first? What you think, Serge?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting matchup, and I do want to talk about Dustin too, because I did talk about how underappreciated Conor was 2 weekends ago. Was it? No, last weekend. Max Holloway had the best performance of his career, and everyone was talking about how he was the best boxer in the UFC. Do we not forget what Dustin did to Max? Right? The thing is, Dustin's too humble to go on Twitter and say, "Hey guys, what about me?" But Dustin Poirier deserves to be mentioned in that conversation. So that being said, what was your question?
My question was, you know, what I was saying was like, you know, damn, I forgot what I was saying. What did I say? What did I say, Jacob?
I'm trying to figure that out myself.
What I was saying was like, you know, I don't feel like, you know, Conor can really, you know, people saying, you know, Dustin can't stand in front of Conor and take too many shots, but Conor can't stand in front of, you know, Dustin either, man, because Dustin Poirier is fast and he hits hard. So what do you think about the threats from both guys as far as the stand-up? Because I think Dustin's a lot more refined than he was back when they fought the first time.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at their careers, and what you notice instantly is Dustin tends to be susceptible to shots early. Connor tends to be susceptible to them late. Right? You look at the Nate Diaz thing, that's when he started getting hit frequently, when he started fatiguing. And even with Khabib, same sort of thing. Dustin, it tends to be early on, like the Connor fight. So for me, it's really gonna come down to, can Dustin weather the early storm, the early onslaught that Connor is gonna bring? Because we know what Connor's gonna do. He's gonna come out there guns blazing to start the fight. What scares me is Dustin said, I want the both of us to be bleeding within the first minute. If you're Dustin, that is not what you should be doing. It isn't. And do I think Dustin can beat him on the feet? Yes, in rounds 3, 4, and 5. I don't think he beats Connor in rounds 1 and 2, because you look at the fight, the two fights that Connor lost the first round in were fights that ended up on the mat. You don't lose. Connor doesn't lose first rounds of any fights. Why? Because they primarily play out on the feet. So wait for Connor to fatigue and then box him. But I just think that if I'm Dustin, I'm getting him up against the fence. I'm grinding it out for the first 2 rounds and then trying the boxing. But you don't want to go out there and stand in front of Connor, because so many people have tried it and we've seen the result.
What you got, Jacob?
You make a lot of good points there. I think I think it's not, Dustin Poirier has improved immensely as a boxer and with the hands, but this just popped in my head. These two guys have matured so much since their last fight, and I just want to mention that these two guys are mature. Being a father changed them clearly. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah,
I like.
It's great to say that. Like, they're both fathers now. They both have purpose in why they're fighting. They've already fought each other before. You know what I'm saying? It's like a level of respect.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to say one thing about when Poirier fought Holloway the first time. Holloway was a minor bait practically, and there's just been a lot of change. So there's things that don't apply. But let's get back to the topic at hand here. There's this one point in the Eddie Alvarez fight when Conor fought him that I think it was like less than 2 minutes into the first round. Conor McGregor threw 2 full left hands right to Eddie's chin within like 0.5 of a second of each other. And I think if Dustin gets into that type of fight, like Eddie Alvarez, he obviously tried to take him down and it wasn't working. So Eddie had to work with what he had to deal with. But if Poirier gets into this stand-up brawl, I think it just spells bad news for him. I think Poirier just has to manage the time, slow the pace, and if Conor McGregor has any control of the pace, this will be a cakewalk for him.
Yeah, man. You know, and being me, and I'm obviously, you know, I see what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? But for me, like, I feel like Dustin Poirier, you know, he has been the more active fighter. You know, if you look at the last 4 years, you know, the last, well, really, okay, let's say the last 3 years, Dustin Poirier has been the active fighter, man. Like, he's been in there fighting Max Holloway, fighting, you know, Dan Hooker, fighting Khabib. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's been in there. You know, Conor's been in there, but he ain't. I mean, you know, in the last 3 years, he fought twice. You know what I'm saying? So for me, you know, I feel like Poirier is not gonna make a huge critical mistake like that, as far as like to be in front of Conor with no kind of game plan. You know, if he's trying to slug it out, I hope he doesn't do that, man. I think Dustin's smarter than that, man. I think he may be trying to. I think he may talk a little reckless right now, but I don't think he's going to fight the way that he's talking. You know, I think he may be trying to, you know, make Conor maybe believe that that's the kind of fight that he wants. But, you know, I hope he don't fight like that. What you think? How you think it's going to go, Serge?
I don't like making predictions, but I have Conor McGregor simply because I feel like, given he's motivated. That's the first thing you notice about Conor, is he's motivated like we haven't seen him before. And you've mentioned how activity plays a huge role in a lot of people's fight styles and ring rust and all that.
Decision making.
Yes. But we haven't seen that with Conor. And I think that's what's different is Conor, I think some time off for Conor is actually beneficial. And you look at even this past year, look at the fighters that have taken time off, right? Neil Magny was suspended for 18 months, came back and won 3 fights. Rob Font hadn't fought in 2 years, went out and beat Marlon Moraes with a jab, knocked him out. So like, I don't necessarily think activity is necessarily bad for a lot of people. I think Conor's going to go in with, calm, and he's going to try to feel things out. When you've got activity, sometimes it's almost like you're too complacent, you're comfortable. And sometimes being, I think coming in and not rushing things and trying to figure things out is what Conor does best. And I think that's going to play into this fight. As for Dustin, I think it's obvious what he needs to do, get this in the later rounds. And it's going to be hard because there's so many tools that we talked about boxing, but Conor also has some of the best kicks, some of the best spinning attacks, some of the best fight IQ in the entire sport. So he poses more than just a boxing threat. He's not going to stand there and just throw punches. So it's going to be an interesting one. If I had to throw money on it, I would be throwing it towards Conor. But I'm also not. A lot of people are like, oh, well, he beat Dustin once. That was a different fight. So I rule that fight entirely when I'm focusing on this one. But, momentum has it going Dustin's way. But how do you pick against Conor? How do you pick against motivated Conor? We haven't seen motivated Conor lose. Except for against Floyd, but that was in boxing.
I accidentally called. I said, "What you got, Dustin?" I meant to say Jacob. I said, "Man, Dustin Poirier must be talking about me." Go ahead, Jacob. What you got to say, man? What's your pick, bro? Wait a minute, Serge. What's your official pick, bro?
Conor McGregor, second round TKO.
All right, go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, I must say, when Mystic Mac makes a prediction, he's usually not too far off. So I think it won't be 60 seconds, but it might be about, I don't know, 240 seconds. I think Mystic Mac gets it done, dispatches Poirier within 4 minutes with a knockout.
Oh, man. I guess I'm a lone wolf here tonight, man, because I'm picking Dustin Poirier. Like I think Dustin Poirier can hang in there, man. I think he can hang in there. I'm gonna go Dustin Poirier TKO round 4. I'm gonna go Poirier TKO round 4, man. I think Poirier can drag him into the later rounds, man. Like, Dustin Poirier is, for me, I think he's, frame wise, he's got that low center of gravity, man. His torso is real thick, a lot of core strength, man. I think he could really pin Conor against the cage. If he wanted to drag him to the ground, he could. I think their ground skills, I would put them on, maybe Dustin a little better than Conor on the ground. You know what I'm saying? So, I think he can drag Conor down to the ground, man, do some damage. He's going to have to slow Conor McGregor down. Don't play – see, Nate Diaz can play that game. You know what I'm saying? Like, because Nate Diaz is very fluid with his hands. You know what I'm saying? So, Nate Diaz was able to stay in there on the feet with Conor to those later rounds. You know what I'm saying? And survive those hits, even though he got hit. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know about Dustin Poirier, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think Dustin is really going to utilize the clinch in this fight. I think we're going to see a lot of clinch work from Poirier. Rounds 1, 2, and maybe even 3. And then maybe, by the end of the third round, we'll see some hands flying. But I see Dustin really clinching Conor and trying to slow him down a little bit and grinding it out and landing a big shot in the 4th round. So that's what I got, guys.
I think that is the key to victory for Dustin. So I think you nailed it on the head there for if Dustin's going to win it, this is how it's going to go. If Conor's going to win it, it's early. And I think everybody's been saying that because it's almost obvious what we know both fighters should do. That being said, this is MMA, right? We could see a flying armbar in the first round from Conor, but seems unlikely. So, but yeah, I think you nailed it. That is the key to victory there for Dustin is get this late and weather Conor late because we've seen that Conor tends to fatigue. And if he does, I think, like you said, Dustin could pull us off. He could win it in 4th round.
Speaking of frame, you were talking about Dustin Poirier. Have you noticed how wide this dude is?
He's a tank. He's a tank.
If you like put this is an odd comparison, but if you like put up an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, that's what he's kind of shaped like. He's just perfectly like a rectangle. I just noticed that. It's fascinating. Everybody's built differently. I mean, he's not like a T shape. This dude's like a U.
Yeah, dude, Dustin Poirier is like, he's big, man. He's a big boy, you know. So we'll see, man. We'll see how this goes, man. There you have it, guys. You got our official thoughts and our official picks for UFC 257 main event. This is a big fight. I think it should be for the lightweight title. Khabib doesn't look like he's going to be fighting, but Dana and Khabib going back and forth on, they don't go back and forth, but Khabib says, "Oh, my mom doesn't want me to fight," and then Dana says, "I know what we talked about in this meeting, and I know what was said in this meeting. So who do we believe?" But anyways, guys, there you got it. Jump over to Bloody Canvas MMA. Welcome my boy Jacob to the team. Of course, you guys know Serge. Serge is the man, always calm in demeanor, just very calm, just very, very calm, just chill, man. It just is what it is with this guy. But anyways,
thing. It's a Canadian thing.
It's a Canadian thing, man. I think it really is, man. All right, guys. Well, we're going to get out of here. Hit that like button, hit that dislike button. If you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and we are out of here.